Hello there. This is Honest Klaud. I am Eric Elliott, and I'm here with my guest, Nick Mielke. Nick, you are man of Podcast of the Whales. You're
Yes.
progenitor of this podcast. You also are one third of SSW Network,
Yep.
also referred to as Streaming Star Wars Network. How do you feel in your current podcasting world, YouTube space with Star Wars fans?
I feel good. It's one of those things. That's a great question. That's a great way to start this out because, yes, I am one of the originators of Podcast of the Wills, still the host of Podcast of the Wills, which we don't do that regularly right now, but it hasn't gone away. I am one third of Streaming Star Wars Network and certainly Force Connect on Friday nights. I am also the co-host of Around the Galaxy with my good buddy Pete, who I know has been on with you already. So when you ask, how's it going as a Star Wars podcaster? For me, it's going great. Like I have all these opportunities and outlets and chance to talk about the thing I love, which is Star Wars. My family may not always appreciate it as much as I do because it takes me away from them sometimes. But, for me, what do I complain about? I've got a variety of different Star Wars podcasts and outlets that I get to participate in pretty regularly. So I'm doing great. I'm excited
I
about it.
mean, there's worse things to be dabbling in than doing a little
That's
podcast.
right. It's not this crystal meth I keep hearing so much about. It's not, horrible gambling debts. It's
Mhm.
Star Wars podcasting, which takes place in my garage, which is still attached to the house I live in with my family. So really, what are they complaining about? I'm still here. I'm not out running the streets at night, but
Well, you can use the terminology from fanboys. It's not a garage; it's a carousel.
exactly. It's all a part of the deal. So, no,
Mhm.
it's great. It's something that Podcast of the Will started 6 years ago. I've been doing this all that time. It's really funny that this is something I do regularly now because in my grown up job, in my work career, I've had a lot of opportunities to do radio and TV interviews. That's something that I've been comfortable with for a good long time. But honestly, it goes all the way back to when I was a kid in the 80s. All I wanted to do was be a radio DJ. And so I had a Fisher Price tape player and I had a Fisher Price record player. And I would make my own radio shows. Like I'd speak into the record or the tape player and I'd record like the DJ part. And then I'd say, and now we're going to listen to Billie Jean by Michael Jackson. And I'd play it on my Fisher Price record player and record it. And then I'd do another DJ bit. And like I would make these radio shows on a cassette tape and I would play it back and listen to it. And growing up in high school, when I wanted to record all my favorite songs off the radio, I'd listen to the top 40 countdown on Sunday nights and record the songs I waited. It was number 13 and I listened to the whole thing until it was time to record it. And so for that to be something that was encoded into me very, very early on, I'm certainly grateful that in this age and day that we live in with the internet and technology and computers being what they are, and to be perfectly honest, a lot of it fast forwarded by pandemic, I'm at a place where I can essentially co-produce a internet TV show every Friday night from my garage, and I can record essentially a radio show, audio long form interviews with one of my great friends that I've met through this thing that I love, which is Star Wars, also through the internet, through my phone and my computer. So it's really neat to borrow a very famous Star Wars cliche. It's like poetry, it rhymes. It comes all the way back from my childhood to where I am now as an almost 45-year-old man, getting to do those things that I wanted to do as a kid, all revolving around my passion for Star Wars. So it's great. I mean, it's fun. I wish there was less negativity. I wish there was less nonsense sometimes, but that's also life. And so it's more about how we deal with it than the fact that it exists. So, for me, it's Star Wars podcasting. It's certainly my hobby. It's certainly my passion. When I'm in my real world life, when I'm at work, when I talk to friends and other people who are not in this little, bubble that I'm in, it's that thing. They're like, and what do you do? I camp, I hike, I spend time with my friends, and I record a podcast in my garage, and it's all about Star Wars. So no
Mhm.
complaints. I guess that's the bottom line. No complaints.
Do you have any of those old recordings still intact from your
I
youth?
don't. I wish I did. It would be something. I do have somewhere my original co-host from Podcast of the Wills. I believe he still has the first couple of episodes of Podcast of the Wheels that we recorded, because we transitioned from one cloud-based server, which was space limited. So we reached a point where when it was time for new episodes, we had to delete old episodes in order to keep uploading them for free. But I think he still has some of the original ones on his hard drive. So luckily for me, although still embarrassing, because I can't imagine how bad I am at podcasting 6 years ago versus how not great at it I am now. But yeah, the kid radio shows, those are definitely lost to time in our imagination. And in my imagination, I sound like Casey Kasem or Rick Dees or, somebody else that was way better at it than I am.
I mean, yeah, sometimes it's hard to see how unprofessional you are until you realize what professionalism actually is. But yeah, like
100%. And you get to go ahead.
Oh, no, you can continue. There's a little hiccup.
I was just going to say, it's 100% that thing where, like, you think you're doing good, and then you get to spend time with people who are better than you, and it lifts you up. And that's a conversation that Pete and I have all the time, certainly for Around the Galaxy, certainly for Streaming Star Wars, is our goal is to be very professional. And we listen to a lot of professional podcasts, and we listen to a lot of podcasts that are better than us, because that's what I'm striving for. Like, I want to put out something that is entertaining, that people get value from. It's not about my ego. It's about, I want to put something that makes people happy and they enjoy being willing to take their time to listen to it. Like, that's the ultimate compliment, because there's a million things pulling on our attention. There's a million things that we could be doing. But if you're willing to take 45 minutes or an hour to listen to Pete and I interview Deborah Wilson or Greg Grunberg or Paul Sun-Young Lee or whoever it is that we have on the show, that's a huge honor, because, certainly the guest is what brings you in. You're here for Greg Grunberg. You're here for Paul Sun-Young Lee. But there are a million podcasts that could get a named guest that you want to hear from. And if they don't do a great job, you're not willing to stick with it. So we do have to do our part. So when, we have those moments where somebody's like, I really appreciated that interview, I loved listening to what y'all had to say. Like, that's the greatest compliment in the world, because that's what we want. We want people to enjoy tuning in and listening to what we do. Because again, you could spend your time anywhere you want to. And if you choose to listen to one of the shows that we put out, that's tremendous. It's special.
Yeah, like what I will say about you and Pete, like, your conversations with your guests, and not even talking about Force Center, like me and whoever pops in, but like a bigger name, like it always feels personable. Like people feel like they can let their hair down.
Sure.
Like in juxtaposition to some bigger name interviews that I've seen, like with people that actually in industry, and sometimes their questions, I'm gonna be honest, dog shit. Like they don't feel like, they feel so separated from the person they're talking to. It's insane, like a true juxtaposition in different qualities you're getting. But it's all about who you have the connection to.
Absolutely.
What program you're on.
Well, I'll say one of the guiding values for us is the people that we primarily talk to. Yes, we're very lucky to get to talk to people who create Star Wars, whether they're writing books, working on TV shows, acting in TV shows, writing, whatever it is they do. But the connecting factor is not that they worked on Star Wars, it's that they are also Star Wars fans. And so the passion is that we both love this thing. They get to work on it, which is the coolest thing in the world. And that's what we all want on some level. We all want to have a screenplay or a story by or whatever. But when we get to talk to these creators, like we've said a lot of times about Around the Galaxy, like we want Around the Galaxy to be what happens if two random Star Wars fans happen to meet up at a bar. What is that conversation like? Whether it's Greg Grunberg, who was Snap Wexley, or whether it's Daniel Jose Older and Brittany Williams, who are husband and wife and who have written Star Wars stories, or whether it's Corey Ryan Forrester, who does not work on Star Wars, but is a noted comedian and social media presence, but also loves Star Wars. Like, what happens when two people run into...
Or the actor who plays Mace Tawani.
Yeah, exactly. Like all these different people that we get to go, you love Star Wars? Hey, I do too. let's talk about it. And where do we go from there? Like that's the goal with Around the Galaxy, is to be that connecting point, because at the end of the day, it's something that has ignited our passion, whether we were kids, whether we were adults when we came to it, whether we came to it in the 80s or the 2000s. It's that unifying thing that brings people together across generations, across socioeconomic boundaries, age, race, sex, gender, whatever the thing is. Star Wars is the thing that brings us together. Like, I wouldn't have met you if it wasn't for Star Wars. And I have so many of what my wife dubbed our weird space friends. Like, I have these people in my life, some of whom are some of my closest friends, because of Star Wars. And if you told me that 20, 25, 30 years ago, I'd be like, what are you talking about? That's weird. Like, what kind of weird adult am I going to be? But here I am, connected by this thing that goes all the way back to stories that George Lucas told and wanted to tell. And, as Obi-Wan says in his speech about the Force, it, binds the galaxy together. And that's what our real life Star Wars is Star Wars is indeed the Force, and it binds all of us together.
Yeah. It's weird. Like, when I started off, like, I was, kind of getting nervous. I'm just like, oh, these guys, I'm like, I saw them on YouTube. Like, they used to do Blue Bantha voices.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Pete was Jabba the Hutt, and Chris Ryan's was Lando Calrissian. I wasn't as familiar with Scotty at that point.
Right.
I became way more familiar with his his videos and how crazy they can be. But like the first time I started hearing him, it was like, they would do like him and his buddy Jerry would just talk about how much they love the Star Wars movies leading up to Episode 9.
Mm-hmm.
And like, it was just like a journey they're going on. It was fun to listen to those videos. But yeah, like, I will go from that to boom, and by your words themselves, the Cal Ripken Jr. of SSW Network / Force Connect, who I had no idea who that was. And it's not because I'm a baby; it's because I don't pay attention to sports.
That's right. You're not a sports guy. Totally fair.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of funny that now I live in Baltimore.
See,
perfectly, he played for the Orioles.
Yeah.
An insane record.
Yes.
That I now know, and I've been, started learning just a little more about sports because you keep dropping that reference. And then I became the infamous man of the Zillow Ray theory.
So much to unpack in all of that. Yes, obviously, Force Connect is our Friday night show that we do on the streaming Star Wars network, or the SSW network, as we now call it. Me, Pete, Chris Ryans from Bro Axiom. We host a Friday night call-in show, and we kind of said from the beginning we wanted it to be like sports talk radio, but for Star Wars fans. And I spent most of my life in the American South. I was born in Illinois, lived there till I was 10, and then I moved to Montgomery, Alabama. And if there are two more different places on earth, it's Peoria, Illinois, and Montgomery, Alabama. But moved down here, was indoctrinated certainly into college football culture, but I grew up as a baseball kid. My parents loved baseball. When we moved to Alabama, we became huge Atlanta Braves fans. I still am today, excited for their playoff run this year. But growing up both playing and watching baseball as a kid, Cal Ripken Jr. was something that was a huge part of my growing up life. And he set a record for, I believe it was Lou Gehrig's record that he broke, 2,130 consecutive games without missing. And Cal Ripken played shortstop for the Baltimore Orioles for all these years, and he never missed a game. And of course, as you get closer and closer to it, it becomes a bigger and bigger deal. And so I remember watching the night that he broke the record, and it was 21-31, and it was a huge deal. So he was known as the Iron Man. Different than the Iron Man we all know now. But when we started doing, or kind of had brought back Force Connect on our Friday night show, it had gone through some different iterations, both during the Beyond the Blast Doors network, after that. And when we brought it back, one of the central things of that show is we want to connect with the people that tune in every Friday night and hang out with us. We want to throw out a topic, throw out a question, bring people. So sports talk radio is people listen to the host talk and then they call in and give their opinions. So we said, let's do that for Star Wars. So we did that. And when we started the show back up, you jumped in pretty early on. And within 2, 3, 4 weeks, it became apparent, like, this guy's showing up every week. And so I think I made the joke. I was like, he's the Cal Ripken of the show. How long is the streak going to go? Because that's what, Cal's game, it was referred to as the streak. And I wish I could go back and do the math. I haven't. Maybe you have.
34 appearances so far.
Was it okay? 34 so far, but we did have a break where the streak was technically broken, not one of the it still counts tonight moments.
Because I didn't physically show up somewhere.
Right, and it was the week that I was also out of town, so I wasn't even there when it happened. So maybe it's out of sight, out of mind. We'll pretend like it didn't happen.
I'm in an episode that doesn't even exist on YouTube anymore.
Exactly. See, so that that became part of to borrow something that I know Bombadcast talks about with their shows. One of the lures or things, if you're a regular on Friday nights on Force Connect, is Eric's going to show up, and usually if we do it right, Angry Tasty Cakes is going to show up right behind you, and it's like y'all are chasing each other, and who's going to be the first one to blink and give and that kind of. But what it is it's fun because, like I said before, with people that choose to listen to our podcast, people who choose to tune in on Friday nights, our friends who are regular listeners and watchers and people who call into the show, you've chosen to spend your Friday night hanging out with us. You could be doing a million other things, but the fact that you go, I want to hang out with those guys and I want to call in and share my opinion, that means something.
Schedules so I can appearances.
It means something special to us, and we don't ever take that for granted. So it means a lot that we have our regulars, and we always love it when new callers call in. We love it when we add new folks to the group. But those ones that, make it a priority, that says something to us. So it's never lost on us that we have people that want to hang out and talk Star Wars with us.
Not too long ago, before I moved out to Baltimore, I was living in Norfolk, and my mom and my siblings were in an area that was about an hour away, and their internet is absolutely atrocious over there. So mom was like, I can pick a weekend, you can hang out with us, and I'll send you back home at night. And when we say night, that's between midnight and 1 in the morning. So I'm just like, I can't do Fridays. Saturdays, Sundays I can do. Fridays,
sure. Yep.
Just so I could make that appearance. It's not just that I can have bragging rights. It's also obviously I have this channel. I can put my name more out there, even though no one really has numbers Star Wars Theory or Star Wars Explained, but you still have an audience.
That's right.
There's still a good retention of people that still pop in just for a little bit.
Yeah.
And just watch for a bit and maybe bounce after a few callers.
Well, and for us, you're a part of it. You're a part of the show. You're a part of, you bring something to it that adds to the overall, scope of what we do. Now, sometimes, and to continue to borrow a sports metaphor, it's far from left field, whether it's Zillow Ray or, the week that somehow we took a hard left turn into incest or whatever it was. We're never entirely sure what's going to happen when you show up. We're never entirely sure what it's going to be when you show up. But again, it's a part of the fabric of who we are and, what we like to do. And again, the way we hang out, if we were all at a bar having the same conversation that we have online on a Friday night, we may be deep into the weeds about Thrawn or Captain Pelion or whatever it is. And then all of a sudden Eric's going to throw in something crazy because everybody has that friend that goes, hey, what about this other random thing? It's the same thing. It's just virtual. So it's all a part of the fabric of who we are and what we do.
Yes, even though I am the author of my ridiculous is Snoke conspiracy, just because I said that and I that was funny. I swear I'm nowhere near as conspiratorial about real things than I am Star Wars. Okay,
that's okay.
I'm not a real tinfoil hat. Oh look, the chemtrails coming after. I'm not those kind of people.
Your commitment to the bit is what matters. It totally works.
But yeah, it's interesting to see like the journeys that we go on. We were just like,
Hmm.
I just want to talk, get my word out there, what I'm thinking, because
Sure.
most people like they just like say it to their friend, say it to a family member, and
Hmm.
then just like move on. They
Yeah.
really don't think about it much, and it's one of the disappointing things about it is like there's only so many people that can ask you about it or say,
That's
"Hey,
right.
didn't you say that?" Like because chances are, if you have an opinion about a movie and you don't really say it to anybody, you like, well, fortunately, I hate to break it to you, you
Hmm.
die. You die, and it just it just kind of ends with you.
Facts.
But it's something about at least I don't know how long YouTube is going to be around or what's going to be archived, but it makes it more
Sure.
likely that it can possibly live on.
Hmm.
Uh, but
Well, and
yeah,
there's two things that I'll throw in with that if I can. Um, First of all, it is interesting that how we come to those conversations, because like you said, like as a Star Wars fan, like I don't super like advertise in my normal everyday. Like I work at a community blood bank, and my job as a manager of a blood bank is to make sure that people can go out and do blood drives and supply our hospitals with blood, and it's medical and it's this whole thing. That's not the place that I go and wear a Star Wars t-shirt and, carry a helmet and do things that make people
and yeah,
automatically go.
wait, how many midichlorians are in this?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. We're not checking this blood for midichlorians, whatever.
No.
So it doesn't come up in my everyday life. So it's not a thing that people automatically are going to know. So it create, again, it's very niche. It's very, specific. But what does happen, and this will be relevant to you for sure. And then I want to come back to kind of the other part of what you said, which is I think it was 2 years ago, right about this time of year, maybe 3 years ago, 2 years. It was 2 years ago, 2021. There was a reboot of The Wonder Years on ABC. And, the original Fred Savage Wonder Years was set in the 70s, I think late 60s, early 70s. Well, they set this one in the 60s, and it was set in Montgomery, Alabama. And it had Dule Hill, and it had a bunch of other folks. And it was around a black family in Montgomery, Alabama in the 60s. Well, I live in the real Montgomery, Alabama. And a couple of years ago in October, there was a notice that showed up on Facebook and in the newspaper and wherever that the Wonder Years was going to come over from Atlanta and they were going to shoot in Montgomery for a week, some on location, on site, like actual, a week of shooting. Well, I went, I'll be an extra in that. So I applied to be an extra and I got accepted. So, and I don't know if you even know this story. It's come up off and on before. So I applied to be an extra, got accepted, and I showed up the first day on set. And the worst part of it was they shaved my beard. It was the first time in 10 years that my beard had been shaved off. They left me with a horrible handlebar mustache. But while I was waiting
I
in
mean,
line,
it was era, accurate.
correct. Oh, yeah. Like the only people that had beards like mine at that point were like crazy hippies. And apparently that wasn't in the scene for the show.
Mhm.
So I'm on set the first day. I'm hanging out. I'm waiting for hair and makeup, whatever it is that I'm waiting for. And I had on a short sleeve t-shirt because it's October, but it's Alabama. It's always hot as hell here. And I have a Star Wars Death Star run graphic tattoo on the inside of my right forearm or right bicep. And
Mhm.
so I'm just standing there and this guy goes, "Is that a Star Wars tattoo?" And I said, "Yeah, it is." And it's always that loaded question of like, where is this going next? Like, are they super into Star Wars? Do they hate the sequel? Like, we're in that era of like, we don't know where this is going to go. I said, "Yeah, it is a Star Wars tattoo." And he goes, "That's awesome." He's like, "I love Star Wars." Well, of course, being the shill of a Star Wars podcaster that I am, I was like, "Well, I have a Star Wars podcast." And I started talking about it. That person that I met on set that day is Jeff Qualio. Jeff
Oh,
Qualio is one of our fellow
yeah.
SSW Network
Mhm.
Friday Night Hangout guys. He lives here in Montgomery, where I live. And so it
Somehow
was this
more
pure,
country than you.
yeah, way more country than me. But the pure coincidence of the fact that our paths crossed because of Star Wars being at this, as extras in a TV show, you factor that out even farther down the line. Jeff's mother was my wife's sixth grade teacher. Jeff's best friend growing up when he was in middle school and high school was the lead guitar player in the band that I played in all through college. Like Jeff and I have all these like overlapping paths of like ways we know each other, but we connected because of Star Wars, and we connected because of he saw my Star Wars tattoo and went, "Hey, you like Star Wars? I do too." Just like we say, you know, with SSW and ATG, like that's what we want those conversations to be. And so that brings this huge galaxy, if you will, and shrinks it way down to something personal and something that we connect with. The other thing that I wanted to throw in on your same point was you talked about, you know, who's going to want to talk about the thing you talk about. Podcast of the Will started 6 years ago. It was June of 2016. Yeah, 2017. That was 6 years ago. Because me and my great friend Steve, we were at a Christmas party together in December of that previous year. And we were talking about Star Wars. And I'm like, holy crap, I love Star Wars. And he's like, holy crap, I love Star Wars. And podcasting was, you know, starting to bloom and blossom and become a little bit more of a thing. And kind of as a joke, we were like, we should have a Star Wars podcast. And he was like, no, I'd totally do that. Now, we both didn't live in the same town. So there was a lot of like coordinating schedules and let's do it over Skype and record. And we both had to count down 3, 2, 1 and hit start on record. Like it's not nearly as great as it is now with StreamYard and all that. But when we decided to do it, Steve's wife, who a million years ago, I worked in the church and youth ministry. She was one of my youth. I was her youth director. And then years later, she became a Methodist preacher and I worked for her. Like it's this, again, funny overlapping circles of all this stuff. But she said, who do you think is going to listen to this podcast of the two of you talking about Star Wars? And simultaneously, our answer was, we don't care as long as we get to talk about Star Wars together. Like it gave the two of us an opportunity. If anybody else wanted to listen to it, that was just icing on the cake. Like that was the bonus. And so to be where I am now, having people who tune in on a Friday night, having people when we tweet out new episodes of Around the Galaxy and they retweet it or they share it and they're willing to put it out on their social media presence. I said, when we went to Star Wars Celebration in Anaheim a couple of years ago, it was the first celebration I had been to since I started a podcast. And I said, I can't wait for the moment where I run into somebody who has heard me in a podcast that isn't somebody I already know. Not Scotty, not Jerry, not, you know, JD, whoever. Like those are people I've known and talked to on social media and interacted with a bunch of times. Like I was looking for that one random person that was like, your podcast of the Wills, right? Like it was that like somebody saw me because of the passion I have, not because of me, not because of ego, but because they're like, you're passionate about Star Wars and I like what you have to say about it. Like that was the moment where I was like, this is going to be cool. So I was actually at the Pink Milk panel that they did that year with Brian and Chase and Mark and Emma and all the folks that were there. And after it was over with, I was talking to one of them because I'd been friends with the Pink Milk folks for a while. And somebody came up behind me and they went, are you Nick from Podcast of the Wills? And I was like, this is it. This is my moment. Like I got really excited. And I was like, yeah, I am. And they're like, that Southern accent, I knew it had to be you. And it was like, that was my dead giveaway. But it was still that moment of like, this huge thing that is Star Wars connects so many of us together in so many ways that, you know, one of my best friends in the world is Pete Fletzer, who lives in New Jersey. We met in person at Anaheim the year before last. And I talked to Pete. The only person I talk to more in my life than Pete is my wife. Like we text all the time, constantly about Star Wars, about life, about, you know, what's going on in our world. And that's because of Star Wars. Like I said, again, like I got to meet you because of Star Wars. I got to learn about Zillow Ray because of Star Wars. I got to learn about, you know, JD and Jerry and Scotty and all these people that, you know, I was texting literally Matt from Blue Bantha Milk lives in Australia. I texted him today just to say, hey man, how are you? I haven't talked to you in a while. How's everything going? I texted Raven because I haven't seen her on, you know, Broaxium or whatever lately because I've been busy and haven't tuned in on Sunday nights. Same thing. Like these are people that are my friends and I consider my, you know, space family. And it's all because of Star Wars. And I'll never not be thankful that this thing that I loved as a kid and imagined and tried to, you know, play pretend in it's become such a huge part of my life.
Mhm. Yeah, I told Pete when I did my episode with him that it is all like everyone with their own channels is like a cousin's household. And we
Yeah,
just go visit,
exactly.
and sometimes we meet
Hmm.
together like for a big dinner.
Hmm.
Um,
That's it. Celebration is our nerd family reunion, man. Like, it's the chance to get together. And I hate that Japan is the next one because I'm not going to be able to make that. But I'm dying for an Orlando because I can jump in the car and be in Orlando in 10 hours, and I'll hug every neck I see. I'll, high five every person I run into. Like, Celebration in Anaheim for me, like, it all came together literally like within the last like 2 or 3 weeks before it started. Like, I wasn't sure I was going to get to go. A bunch of things fell into place perfectly. Couldn't have planned it. And initially, when I was going to go, I didn't even have a ticket to go to the con itself, but I didn't care because all I really cared about was getting to hang out with my weird space friends. So if I hadn't gotten into Celebration proper and gone to the Obi-Wan premiere, which I did and was amazing, and going to the panels that I did, which were amazing, if all I got to do was fly to California and hang out on the back patio bar of the Hilton with Chris and Dan and Jason Fry and Greg Iwinski and Pete and all these people, like, that would have been worth every amount of effort that I put into it, because these have become people that I admire and I just want to hang out with.
See, trust me, I would really love to meet one of you guys in person there. That being said, unless if I have a table, booth, or selling something, or I'm hosting something, I don't want to go to the Star Wars
That's fair.
celebration. It's just like it's too many people. Like when it
It's,
happens, I
yeah,
just spend hours just watching the YouTube
sure.
lives and people
Yep.
like. It's not just the official Star Wars ones. Like sometimes I'll watch like when a podcaster or
Yep.
cosplayer like is just going
Somebody
around
covers
buying
it.
things
Yeah.
because
It's very
there's no way you
peoply,
can
no
see
doubt.
everything. Like just
Yeah.
too much, way too
Yeah.
much.
It's very peoply for sure.
Very peoply. Um, now I was thinking about Kyle Ripken's record,
Yeah.
and I like thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, right now I'm at 34.
Okay.
Over 2,000 seems a lot,
It does
and
seem like a lot.
I'm just like, and like maybe I would say between like 30 and 45 days would be hosted for
Right.
for a year, right?
Sure.
Because let's be honest, you're not doing 52. Like things
That's right.
happen,
We're not doing every
holidays pop
Friday.
off.
We've had some off weeks.
Maybe someone knock on wood gets in, has to go to the hospital for something. Uh, but I was just thinking to myself, I'm like that's a lot, and just thinking to myself, I'm like, damn it, I keep saying think to myself. I said it like 6 times. But what occurred to me is like, would you, in a certain amount of years, would you be open to like giving the reins of this podcast to someone else?
That's a great question. I mean, it's hard to know in the present because, of course, it's something that I'm like, this is my deal. This is what I do. And honestly, that's actually a really great question. I've had a bunch of these thoughts. I've had a bunch of these conversations because when Pete and I teamed up, gosh, we're going on almost 2 years ago now, that Podcast of the Wheels and ATG, kind of fully merged together. Not only for, yeah, exactly. I did it actually just out of sight of the camera, but we merged together as, we were both doing, our podcasts were very similar. Podcast of the Wheels and Around the Galaxy were both very similar, longer form interviews. And, Pete and I are so alike in so many ways. Like, a lot of times on Fridays, we're like, we need to like have alternating opinions so that we can go at each other and make it interesting online. But the reality is, like, we think the same way about most things. So it's hard to like, we don't want to manufacture it and make it fake, but
you got Chris.
And we do have Chris, and as long as
Chris
we
is a
can
little
not
different.
read comic books, yeah, we'll be fine. So when the decision came to kind of merge together and like, let's co-host Around the Galaxy together, let's do Friday night with Force Connect with Pete and I and Chris. it left the question for me, well, what about Podcast of the Wills? Because that is something that I started 6 years ago, and it is something that's special to me and, has meaning. And so initially I was like, I don't want to let that go. Like, I don't want that to, not that I was looking to give it to somebody else, but like, what does it become? And I really feel good about what we've done, which has been very minimal to this point, but I have some ideas. But what we decided is, in the grand scheme of the network, Around the Galaxy is our long form interview show. Force Connect is our Friday night live hangout, sports talk radio for Star Wars, that whole thing. Podcast of the Wills is the deep dive show. Like, if there's something that we want to dig deeper on, that we want to kind of nerd out more, go, get really granular about it, like dig in, that's the place to do that. So like we did back in June, we did an Indiana Jones show because I'm a huge Indiana Jones fan. And if there's anything I love more than Star Wars, it's Indiana Jones. Now, don't start with me with this Biker Scout, because my helmet's coming soon, and it's the one helmet I've wanted more than the one that's over this shoulder. Original Stormtrooper and Biker Scout. Those are the helmets that I've wanted. Chris Ryan's Geek John Collectibles. He has mine. He's shipping it very, very soon, and I can't wait for it to be in my hands.
Anyway,
so Podcast of the Wills became the deep dive show. We don't do it regularly, but when we do, it's kind of a special event. It doesn't go away completely. And I'm excited about that, because we're going to do one about concept art, because Ralph McQuarrie art, that's one of my passions. I love vintage art, that kind of stuff. We're going to dig into that. But it exists in a way that it doesn't have to go away, but I also don't have to get, giving away one of your children, as it were. So to come back to your original question, I don't know what's going to happen with it down the line. Like, it could be that, if Pete and I do Around the Galaxy for another year or two, and his life situation changes dramatically, and he's like, I just can't host the podcast anymore, he might say, but I know we're connected. We feel the same way about it. I feel good about you continuing Around the Galaxy, or vice versa. If I have to step away, of course, I'm going to be like, you started Around the Galaxy. It's still your baby. Keep going. More power to you. So in the moment, it's hard to say, would I ever? But we don't know. Like, we could look down the line and go, when he and I partnered up, we didn't know that we were going to bring Chris in. We had an idea because we had talked about a bunch of stuff like that at Celebration. But then all of a sudden we looked up and we're like, the three of us makes a lot of sense. We're all Gen Xers. We all have different, slightly different points of view, but also complement. So there's no real way to know where we ultimately going to end up. But we are open to what we like to call the living force, which means it's going to guide us at the time that it's appropriate.
I mean, it's a big thing to think about, like, oh, how am I going to be in 20 years?
Mm-hmm.
Is relatively everything going to be the same except for, my joints and my hair? Or is going to be something more drastic than that? Like,
That's right. Hopefully I've still got my hair.
Well, I was talking more about, like, it's going white kind of thing.
Well, it's definitely going white, especially all right here. Lots of gray, but...
I don't think it's a bad thing. Like, I don't like the idea of my hair going away, but I'm like, hair's going gray. I'm like, I already have like a gray hair right here and in my beard. I'm just like, whatever. It makes me look more distinguished. But anyway,
100%.
But I was just thinking to myself, I'm like, well, if you're just like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore, but maybe I want to like be less direct and like I'm the one hosting it. Like, maybe I'm just like more of, I don't want to say shadowy figure, like more of someone that is producing, does creative choices. Like it becomes like a true network, much like news networks are.
Sure.
I think that would be a decent idea, and like giving it to someone that, make sure they like, okay, they got time for it, they have the passion for it, they have good rapport, and it probably help if, like if you're 20 years later, like you probably get someone young, get someone like, oh, I'm going to get the 80-year-old guy.
That's right. Somebody who knows how to plug their microphone in, or turn their volume up on their computer.
Or how
before we started, the problem we had with the technical issues was that my computer was not turned up, not that you were having a problem.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, if this temporary absences, maybe I'll build them in. Just hit me up, and I'll let you know if it's possible.
There you go. You never know what could
But
happen.
you gotta get your foot in somewhere in the door. You gotta infiltrate in a nice way.
Yep. There you go.
But anyway, like I thought it'd be good to before we get to the Gulf Shido to talk about some of the things that have been said and brought up.
Hmm.
With me and you both on SSW
Sure.
Network. Like I tend to go through my appearances just
Hmm.
to like get a good laugh or remember exactly what happened. I mentioned I didn't see you for the first one, but I did see you for the
Right.
second one. And uh, how's your theory about members of the Bad Batch being force sensitive now? Has it changed?
I think Hunter is force sensitive. That's always been my, like, I think that's a part of the deal. Like him being Hunter, him being able to have that sense. Like it makes the most sense that Hunter would be force sensitive because he has the intuition, he has the premonition, something's about to happen. There was the episode, I think it was around the episode where they encountered the Zepho statues, maybe even the same one where the ship was parked on the
Yeah,
outcropping.
yeah, that
When
was the
their
one.
ship got stolen, and he had like there was that moment where like it felt like he knew it was coming right before it happened. And of course there was a part of us was like, well, he has heightened hunting senses. But there was also that part of me was like, but maybe he has force sensitivity. Like I to me, if we're talking about the Bad Batch, I think Hunter is absolutely the most likely to be a part of the experimentation to make one of these clones force sensitive.
Okay. Um, have your views changed on the special editions since we talked about it on the channel, or are they relatively just the same?
That's an excellent question. It's very present right now because, and I think I posted this on social media not last Thursday, the Thursday before. Our local symphony orchestra here in town did Star Wars: A New Hope, where they played the movie in full, and our local symphony orchestra played the entire score along with the movie,
Yeah.
which is fantastic. And I learned a couple of cool things. One, there's a copy of the movie that doesn't have the score in it. And when it travels from Disney and Lucasfilm to someplace like Montgomery to be a part of one of these events, someone from Disney and Lucasfilm travels with it to make sure that nothing happens, nobody gets it, because what would be worth more on eBay than a bootleg copy of Star Wars without the
Wait, is
soundtrack
it
in
like
it?
someone with like nuclear launch codes and they had to like
it it's almost
shackle
I
themselves
didn't
with the suitcase?
I didn't see them travel specifically directly, but I do imagine they had a briefcase with a handcuff like attached to their wrist. A good friend of mine is actually the executive director of the symphony here, and I need to ask him that question, like, what was it like? But there was somebody who not only traveled with it, but also made sure that it was played appropriately, that like they didn't go off on a side quest or change the music or whatever.
And it's synced right.
Yeah, exactly. Everything lines up, everything matches. But to come back to your question about special editions, it was also fascinating to me because the edition of the movie they used for these events, and Disney Concerts is its whole own separate event, was the 1997 special edition version. Because as we watched the credits roll, that was, the time and the date that came up. So what it meant was it was special editions. It had the terrible Jabba Han steps on Jabba's tail.
You can feel the polygons on that Jabba.
Yeah, and that's my biggest thing. My biggest thing with the special edition, and so it was not McClunky. That was my original point. Is it was not McClunky, which was later. It was 97 special editions. But when it comes to the special editions, I am not opposed to them because I do think the ability to clean up visual effects, we hear a lot about on Hoth with the snow speeders and being able to see the, the landscape through the A pillar in the cockpit, like to be able to clean that up, fix that, 100%, totally in the purview. The biggest no-no to me in the special editions is that scene with Jabba in Docking Bay 94 right before Han and them escape, because for no other reason, like, yes, it's dumb that he steps on his tail. It's dumb that he's there. We replace the human figure, the whatever, but it kills the mystique of Jabba the Hutt.
Yes.
because in the first one, all we know is this guy's being hunted by Jabba the Hutt, and this bounty hunter's been sent after him that shows up in in Empire Strikes Back. So when we finally get to Jabba the Hutt in Return of the Jedi, like, yeah, he's a big gross space slug, but like he's kind of scary because it's been built up. But the fact that he's somebody slithering around and Han Solo's ballsy enough to step on his tail takes kind of the wind out of that sail. So like,
and he's
that's
not
my big thing. Right. Like, that's my biggest thing with the special editions is if they took that one scene out, the rest of it's fine, other than Yub Nub in Return of the Jedi. Like, I'm a Yub Nub guy. I don't need, the celebration, whatever they changed it to.
I know there's like very big opinions of which side are you on? Are you Yub Nub or Celebration? But I'm like, I like both. Like, one feels good.
I'm way less passionate about
Celebration. I appreciate more as saga wise.
Right.
I appreciate,
and I like the across the galaxy aspect of it.
Yeah, I appreciate Yub Nub more for the movie itself.
Sure, and that's fair.
Like I'm absorbing more of the Ewok culture.
Yes, and if I'm being fair, I'm way less passionate about Yub Nub Celebration than I am the terrible Jabba scene in New Hope.
It's funny. I have my issues with it, but like it doesn't. I'm just like whatever. The change that I can't stand is Jedi Rocks. Jedi Rocks.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Throw that out.
Also, actually, I will stand corrected. I do have one other big issue. Han Solo 100% shot first. I don't want this.
It wasn't that he shot first. He shot only in the original.
Correct. That's it.
But yes, I'm saying he shot first.
Only.
Yes. He shot only.
Yes, the mystique of Han Solo, the badass that Han Solo is he smoked Greedo, and Jabba says it to him. You fried poor Greedo in that terrible scene. Yeah,
I think Jabba sounded like in the crypt.
Exactly.
But like the bigger issue I have with it is that it makes Han's arc weaker in the movie.
Yes, correct. He's not quite as much.
He's just like, oh, he's not that bad, but he's just like, oh, he just kills him in cold blood. He's like, oh, he's more ruggish than I thought.
Yeah, it's interesting because it lessens Han a little bit, and then the Jabba scene lessens Jabba a little bit, and those two run side by side. Like, those are my things with the special editions. But yeah, cleaning up visual effects, I'm 100% behind that. Like, that's awesome.
How is Pete's Funko Pop addiction? His Funko, how is that going?
Pete Pletzer, one of my very best friends. He is, and there's no other way to describe this. He is a Funkaholic. There's no two ways about it. He has issues, and I will be fair in also saying I am an enabler. I fairly regularly, if I'm at my local Target or Walmart or somewhere, and I see a Funko Pop, really any Star Wars Funko Pop, I will text him pictures of it, because if he needs it, he can say, damn it, I need that. And I'll buy it and send it to him, and he'll pay me for it. So I'm not a great supporting friend in his Funkaholism, but at the same time, yeah, he's way in the hole at this point when it comes to Star Wars Funko Pops. Yeah,
like I can imagine myself getting more Black Series figures. Right. I think I have 2 or 3. Like, I have Val from Solo. I have Director Krennic, who is one of my favorite characters in Star Wars. But like some of the figures, like I know that they have like way better technology of like scanning people's faces, but sometimes it still looks a little weird. Like their Lando to look like Josh Gambino, Donald Glover, it still looks a little off. It doesn't quite look like him.
Right.
And like they do some figures like in other toy lines they really don't touch. Funko the same way sometimes, because they're just like, well, we're gonna make bank off this, so we're just like do anything. One figure that I'm surprised doesn't exist is that there's no Black Series version of Leia from Rise of Skywalker. Doesn't
Mhm.
exist.
Yep.
The only figure I can find of anything from Leia from that movie is with Funko. I'm
Sure.
just like, that's really weird. I'm just like, this is posthumous, like performance of Carrie, and it's like, like not only were we saying goodbye to Leia in the movie, but we're saying goodbye to the actress as well.
Right. Mhm.
Um, like
Well, and it's
that's one of the best aspects of that movie that have major issues with.
yes, 100%. Well, and I thought it was interesting that recently, in the last however long, Funko has announced the Pop Yourself deal, where you can go in and you can make a Funko Pop that look like you can change it and edit it and
Oh,
create your own
like
to look
Build-A-Bear.
like you. Yeah, like Build-A-Bear, like the Black Series figures that you can scan in your face. For the Funko ones, it's not a scan of your face, but you pick all the attributes and hair and skin and eyes and whatever to make a Funko Pop that looks like yourself. And it's like $50, and that's cool because it's custom and it's whatever. And so, like, Pete did one and Chris made one, and they were sending pictures back and forth, and we were all texting about it. And then I stopped myself and I went, yeah, that's cool and all, but I already have a Funko Pop of myself, and it's just this one. It's General Obi-Wan Kenobi, because the brown hair, the beard, like, I don't have to spend $50 on it. Somebody made it for me. I mean, we're pretty much there. A little less gray in his beard, but
Maybe Ken Plume will teach you how to like just appropriately add, the streaks of white hair and
exactly.
beard to
Just do
line
it
that
just
up.
right.
Can you explain why you get Nick Nolte and Gary Busey confused?
I don't. It's just a joke. It's something that I think
Oh,
makes
okay.
me laugh. Yeah, it's straight up a bit, 100%.
Okay.
Because
Um,
Nick Nolte is in one of my favorite terrible movies of all time, which is Blue Chips, which is a college basketball movie that starred Shaquille O'Neal and Penny Hardaway. Penny Hardaway is my all-time favorite NBA basketball player of all time. And he played a coach who gets suckered into paying players to come play for him in college. And it's a terrible movie, but it's fun because I watched it in the 90s when I was big into basketball and all that kind of stuff. And Gary Busey is just a balls out crazy person, top to bottom. So I don't actually get them confused, but it's a fun joke to make.
yeah, but before Nick Cage did his thing, we had Gary Busey.
Correct. Exactly. The OG Nick Cage.
One of my favorite quotes from you that you keep repeating is, "It's fake and it's in space. What are we doing?"
Yes. Exactly. What are we doing here? Like, that's my deal. I say that to my kids all the time. I have two 15-year-olds. I have an 11-year-old. I have a 7-year-old. And when shit gets crazy and we're losing our mind about something that doesn't matter, I'm just like, what are we doing here? Like, what is this getting us? Where are
Oh,
we
I thought
going
you were
from
saying
here?
it's fake and it's in space. Just
Oh no,
like as
the
a
what are we
mantra or
doing
whatever.
here? Yeah, the what are we doing here is for my kids, but same principle, same concept. Like, people losing their mind. We said this at the top of the show. Social media, the darker corners of Star Wars fandom, people who, like, literally, there are some Star Wars fans who are not happy unless they're unhappy and complaining about something, and I don't understand that. Like,
Yeah,
that's my
every new
question.
show
What are
has to
we
be the
doing
worst
here?
thing ever.
Yeah, like, I'm only happy if I'm unhappy. Like, why? Like, why are you here? And that's my other thing. I've said that for years. If all you want to do to exist in the Star Wars world is exist to complain, why are you here? Like, there has to be a better use of your time. There has to be something else that you could do that would add value to this world. So, yes, I love Star Wars with my whole heart. I do podcasts, I do all these things, but it's fake and it's in space. Like, what are we actually complaining about?
Like, I would say there's a decent number of them that they just get upset and they like feed into the storm of being angry of like supposed wokeness or
Right.
Disneyfication or whatever, and they just spot into the narrative. But I'm just like, the smart ones are the ones that are doing real evil. The ones that don't believe it, but they love spreading the hate because they know it'll get the clicks. They
I would
know
say it's clicks and money. That's what it is.
Patreon supporters.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the ones you got to watch out for.
Correct. 100%. Yeah.
Um,
it's all about clicks and money.
yeah, and another point is we're spoiled now. Like,
Yep.
being a Star Wars fan when Star Wars first came out, like he's like, "Oh, look, we got the movie. Movie's great. When's the next one coming out?" 3 years later, and few comics.
Yep.
It's a juxtaposition of what is now, because like there was a stretch of time where we movie every 2 years, and there's a even shorter part of time where it's like, oh, not only is there this movie that just came out, new episode of this TV show that everyone's raving about is out on Disney Plus. Go check it out. And there are, for like every new movie, there's like at least 5 new novels made.
Yep.
There's ongoing comic series. Like there's some times where there's like 15 comic runs running at once. There is a litany of toys. There's people will sell old toys on eBay. Like it's we're so entrenched in this property more than we ever were. Like it was pretty bare bones. It hadn't like really developed to what it is now. Like it would take a couple of decades to like. It's like it's if you want to have anything, practically got it now.
Yep.
And trying to keep up with all the material, it's you
Can't do it.
Like,
Can't do it.
Like unless if you are rich and you don't need to work at all, and like you have servants that will like bring you food. That's the only way you could like get through every book, because I'm just like, okay, yeah, you have your big titles from Legends, like the Thrawn trilogy.
Yep.
You have Plagueis,
Jedi Academy.
But you also got Young Adventures of like Boba Fett from like 2002, just like a paperback that's like 40 pages.
Yeah.
And there are thousands of books like that, even before we get into modern canon.
Yeah.
Like it's absurd, and I don't even talk about video games.
Correct.
Like think about that. Like there was a whole big pie of this, and like I was able to talk about this much and not even get to it yet.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah, we're spoiled, and we should be more appreciative of what we do have, but let's not be so happy with what we get that we can't do constructive criticisms of the work, and
absolutely
we can't criticize people that are doing horrible things for clicks at the same time.
100%. And we have maintained, certainly in the SSW network, certainly on our Friday night show, but even with Pete and I and our own personal, social media presence, our whole deal is, yes, you can be critical of Star Wars, because there are plenty of things that have happened in Star Wars that weren't my favorite, that I wish that were different. What if they had done this? Whatever. Where it becomes an issue is, don't be an asshole about it. Like that's our bottom line policy. Like if you disagree with me, I don't have to be horrible to you about it. I just go, Eric and I feel differently about McClunky or Who Shot First or whatever, without making my entire personality into torches and pitchforks and we're going to burn down his village. Like it doesn't have to be that way. It's vacant in space. It comes back to what you were saying before.
I think it's like some things you're never going to change on, and that's healthy. Like I'm never gonna be like a big fan of Jedi Rocks. It's just not gonna happen. Like it just hurts my ears to listen to it, and that's one of the reasons why I watch Harmony Despecialized editions now.
Yep,
that's my go-to to watch the original trilogy. But a character that like I have like done like I was up with this character and then they went down and then went up, being more appreciative. There's characters like Jar Jar Binks. When I was a kid, one, I thought he was hilarious, and two, I felt like I had to hide that I loved him so much.
And that was a generational thing, no doubt.
Yeah, and then I was just I wasn't like being super in the mind of hate, but just like, oh, he sucks and blah blah blah. This movie's irritating me, and I decided to watch it again and think about, put myself in his shoes, think about how he's experiencing this, and I was like, you know what? It's a pretty good character. Execution could have been done way different, and there's a whole conversation that I think you can have health, healthy wise, and not getting two pointing fingers of why is he representing this way? What does it mean to real life people in cultural representations?
Right.
I think you can have that, and I, for the most part, never say, "Oh, you're wrong for thinking that." I'm just like, well, maybe there's a point in thinking that. I'm open to just respecting other people's opinions, unless they, once again, try to be an asshole. That we won't tolerate.
Yeah, that's it.
And just like you say, we need more Erics in this fandom, according to you directly.
Yep.
But yeah, is there anything you want to ask me before we start slowly wrapping up and talking about the Club Shido?
What has been your favorite? I'm going to kind of take it back to like an ATG 10 question situation. Movies, TV shows. Those are your two choices to choose from. What has been your favorite Star Wars moment from any of the 11 movies or any of the shows we have gotten so far?
Can I pick one for movies and one for TV shows? Is
sure.
That okay?
Absolutely. It's your show.
Okay. So I would say my favorite Star Wars movie moment is, I'm a big fan of Luke inside the Millennium Falcon and R2-D2 playing the message from Leia from Episode 4 for him in Last Jedi. It knocks me out and how emotional it feels.
Yes.
I would say one of my favorite TV moments is Obi-Wan Kenobi telling Darth Vader / Anakin that he's sorry for what he did.
Huge.
Last episode of Kenobi.
Yep, so good.
Yeah, like the things I hold on more to is like the ones that make me want to cry like a little bitch in the corner. Not so much of like the grandiose fighting. Like, don't get me wrong, I love some of that stuff. Yeah. Like Praetorian Guard fight, it's fire. Like the pod race is so fun. There's a million moments like that, but the things I'm just like, that one sings to me. That one I could just go sit down and like, yeah, that happened.
I get it.
Yeah.
Excellent choices, by the way. I'm sure you've heard me say this on the podcast or Friday night or sometime before, but in 2017, I went to my first celebration, which was in Orlando. It was in April of 2017, and it was right after Carrie Fisher died in December of 2016. And Billie Lourd was there, and she came out on the live stage, which was the one that everybody had access to, and you just kind of gathered around. And she came out, and she was wearing just a very simple, basic white dress. And she recited that monologue from A New Hope. General Kenobi, years ago, you served my father in the Clone Wars. And it was so humbling and powerful to see this woman who had lost her mother not 6 months ago, standing up there in front of this room full of people who adored her mother, reciting one of the things she was iconically most known for. And it was incredibly powerful. And so that has only cemented my adoration and affection for that moment in the movies. The other two, if I'm picking multiples from the movies, Luke staring at the twin suns. Luke staring at the twin suns when that music.
It happened twice.
Well, the one when the music sting hits, when he's out there and it's wistful and it's, the Force theme. When it comes. I know, but the original one, Eric. I'm not talking special. Yes. So I love that moment. And then, of course, the other one for me is in Empire, when Luke and Vader are facing off and they're backlit, and you just get the red and the blue sabers crossing over each other. that iconic shot that you see in silhouette so many times on, Cloud City. I just love that moment. I love, the juxtaposition, good versus evil. I love the artistic composition of it. As far as TV goes, honestly, also from Obi-Wan, when Obi-Wan's talking to little Leia at the end of that same final episode, and he's telling, as a dad, like, hits me in every one of my feels. And when he says, if you ever need me, I'll be here for you, which calls back to when she calls for him and says, General Kenobi, years ago, you served my father in the Clone War. Like, that emotional story, like the father moments throughout Kenobi hit me really hard because I am a father. Bad Batch does the same thing. Those moments with Omega and the guys, like, I'm a dad. I have 4 girls. Like, it's a part of who I am. It's a part of what I do. So, any of the parental moments in any of the shows absolutely hits me. Mando and Grogu, you name it, I'm a sucker for it.
All right. Before I get to the Glove Shadow, 2 things popped in my head. It's like, for people that don't know, Billy Lord is also in Star Wars. She plays
Correct.
Shadow
Connix. Yep.
It's someone I give a lot of play in my own version of Episode 9 that I'm currently writing.
Nice.
I'll make sure to let people see it, and maybe I'll get someone to talk about it on channel, or maybe I should do like I've seen some people like back when they seem more relevant to be upset or air grievances about that movie. They would do like little videos of script reads, and they'll do like little drawings. Maybe I'll do that.
Mm-hmm. There you go. Absolutely.
Maybe that'll be the one thing that I do that gets thousands of views. I don't know.
There you go. You never know.
And like, I don't have any insider information, but I think they're going to bring back was it Vivian Leah Blair as Leia again? I think they're going to put in something else. Like,
no doubt.
Like, to me, she is the perfect person to play little Leia. Like,
yes, she was great.
I got no beef with this child. It sounds weird, but I have no beef with her. She is invited to the cookout.
Yep, there you go. She's not beefing.
No. So, you ready for Glove Shadow time?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
I'm going to bet you have never heard this character or know what the character looks like.
Okay. You're probably right, but go ahead.
Wiria Junis.
No, not even a little bit.
Don't worry. I got you covered with Wiria Junis.
Okay. Automatically, I'm getting the mean teacher from Harry Potter vibes.
Professor Umbridge.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like she's like a slightly younger Dolores Umbridge. That's where I'm going with that.
You're not completely off, believe it or not. So, Wiria Junis was a female education officer. She was from Corvella. She investigated truancy. She was hunting down these kids and teens to make sure they go to school out in the streets of Coronet City, which is located in Corellia. This is the same city we see Han enslaved other children. So he was like 18, 19, but he had children around him, and Kira was escaping, and they go to a terminal section. Now, this character, obviously, we know she looks like, golden buns in the head, at least 50 years old. Doesn't seem like she has much fun ever. But some of the information we do know about her is that she was there at the terminal. Now, I rewatched the beginning of Solo over and over again, just trying to hunt for her.
Right.
Now, a lot of aspects of Solo I do like, including cinematography. Also, one of my issues is cinematography. A lot of things are really murky and
Sure.
hard to make out. So I can't find her. I just know she's there.
That's right. You just know
She's
she's
somewhere
there.
in there. I can't really find information about the actress. Most of the information is like through like handbook guide of the movie. Apparently, she probably wore a civil service rank on her
Okay.
outfit, and some reports I've seen about this character on the very little you can find on Google is that it seems like she, even though she's like very much about trying to find his youth and not going to school, seems like she'll just kind of like drop it when it's comfortable for her.
Mm-hmm.
Like she's very wishy-washy about her job because she'll take bribes to not apprehend a student. She's like, whatever, I'm about going off to a new place. So yeah, I wouldn't necessarily call her evil, but
Okay.
she's a bit of an asshole. just a
There
little
you
bit.
go. That's it. That's it.
Yeah. What do you feel about Warrior Junius after learning this information and being bestowed this knowledge, this Star Wars knowledge?
I'm glad that I wasn't aware of her, because clearly I wouldn't like her. Like if she's if she's the Dolores Umbridge, if she's mean, if she's a little bit of an asshole, not my person. It's not for me.
Alex from Star Wars Explained keeps asking his guests, what's one character you think might be the biggest fan of this character? Like one person, like you might be the biggest fan of this person in your country. I think I might just be by default. I just think she's slightly interesting. Like
Yeah,
I don't think
it's
there's any
probably.
Warrior Junius stands out there.
Yep, I think you've cornered the market on that one. Good job.
Is there anything you want to say to the people before I bounce?
I've had a great time talking to you. I'm thankful for you being a part of our streaming Star Wars network, our Friday night crew. I'm thankful for, like I said, just from the beginning, anybody that listens to any of the things that we do around the galaxy, Podcast of the Wills, Force Connect, any of the shows we do. It's an honor to get to be a part of your time, your interest in Star Wars. It's an honor to just get to hang out, because that's what it is. We want to hang out. We want to have fun. We want to have a drink. We want to talk about things that we're excited and passionate and make us happy. Other than that, like, it's just fun. It's fake it in space, and we should have fun with it.
Yeah. And of course, if y'all have watched my episodes, you already know what I bring up on a regular basis by now. Like, it's still right
Yep.
there.
That's it.
Snoke. It's Luke clearly wanted to smash his sister. Like this by now.
It's true.
Let's just focus on asking my guest of like what they're planning to do with this channel. I now know the origin of how you're cool with Jeff Qualio. I guess maybe you should send extra thank you to your tattoo artist. Like
exactly. Clearly that's it. Yeah.
But it's great how it connects us. Of course, be wary of people that use it for ill will, but most of the time, giving out a hand, whether that's metaphorically, physically, can do more than not.
Yeah, 100%. Like, it's just, this is what we do. We hang out, we talk about this thing that we love, and we hope that we're able to connect with each other somewhere along the way.
All right. Stay tuned for my episode with Buck O'Brien.
Love Buck. Huge fan.
Yeah. Shout out to young Buck. I'm thank you for coming onto my channel. I should say that.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. So much fun.
You could put time out of your fatherhood and your marriage.
That's right. Just a little bit. In fact, I've got people right now waiting for me to come inside and put them to bed. So this worked out just perfect.
All right. Well, good night to you. Good night or morning to my audience whenever they watch.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.
This was On the Squad.